So, Dr. Rudd, you were involved in a project on biodiversity where they were trying to, a collection of scientists, if I'm not mistaken, was attempting to identify the most important questions for ecological science in the sort of current situation. Is that correct?
Actually, it was probably more policymakers were involved in trying to identify the questions that science could contribute to.
Oh, okay.
We did have scientists involved in the process, both government scientists and academic scientists. Our core scientific team, the research team itself that I was working with, was more there to act as facilitators. So the idea was that, yes, it was a scientific team and a scientific project, but we were really there to try to elicit the questions from policymakers and from science advisors to policymakers as to what was really important from a policy perspective with regards to biological diversity and conservation and management.
That sounds like a worthy project for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, you had everybody involved just brainstorm potential questions that could be answered.
We actually went out, we used a web collection site for candidate questions, and then we did some really extensive canvassing of different research networks, policy networks, looking for people. First of all, the first part of the process was to solicit candidate questions. So we really opened up the process to let anybody that wanted to contribute a candidate question and what they thought might be a top 40 question in Canada. And then, so that was the first step in the process, was the actual question solicitation, which we just let flow, and that just happened as it happened.
Gotcha. And then in the end, you ended up with about 400 questions, I think 396.
Yeah, 396 questions were submitted. Some great questions, of course, that came in. Some redundancy. People would have very similar questions. So what the second step in the process was that amongst our core team, we took that 396 and we worked that down. We sort of worked through the redundancies. We had some aspirational criteria that we wanted questions to comply with or adhere to. We didn't want things that you could answer simply yes or no. What happened then was we did sort of the initial edits on that, trying to keep the spirit and intent, and we got it down to about 250. And then we, from there, convened a workshop where we invited a variety of people from government, from academic sector, from the civil society sector, into also industry associations. We invited them in to take this group of 250 and then winnow that group down to a final list of 40. So it was the process. We had an opening plenary in the workshop, sort of discuss the ground rules. Excuse me. And then we would we did a series of breakout groups. So we would go to groups of 8 or 10 people in a breakout, and then people with certain sorts of expertise. So it was a mix of academics again and scientists and others in the room, and then they would work through maybe 40 or 50 questions within a particular topic area, and then try to again bring that down to a few candidates for the top 40. So it was this progressive. We went from 396 down to 250, then we were eventually down to 54, and then it was a final plenary where the people that were there sort of debated it out as to what really made the cut and what might be combined.
And so, what are the hopes for this project? What do you hope to see come out of it as a result?
Well, one of the things that already has come out to is that we hope that we have opened up some channels of dialogue between government policymakers and decision makers and the academic community, the conservation science community. We certainly hope that can be, broadened over time. So one thing is the networks. We now have the list of 40. We've been through the post workshop editing, which was quite something with 34 co-authors and trying to, duke it out over the particular wording of particular questions. And we didn't want them too broad. We didn't want them too narrow. So there was a lot of discussion on that. It was a very interesting process with the government and the non-government people involved. Where we are now with the 40 being published very soon, we're looking to do a second phase of the project, which will bring us into a ranking, and that we're going to open up to a much, much broader audience than we had before. Being a participatory type of project, we want to make sure that people in Canada get as much opportunity to have some input as possible. So we're going to take the 40 we have now, ask people to rank them in a series of ranking questions. We have some other questions in the survey research as well. But then we'll give the people after the rankings, we'll also give people the opportunity to say, well, look, I think this question was really, it shouldn't be on the list. It's really it's not worthy. And so, and then give them the chance to propose alternatives. So again, it's a little bit of a deliberative process to make sure it is participatory, that people feel they have some say on it, and it is, it's Canada's top 40, and everybody knows that in top 40 things change over time, so priorities change, and things will roll around, and so we aren't saying that they're the 40 most important questions. They're 40 questions that would really help policymakers, we hope, develop effective policies for the management and conservation of biological diversity. And different people have different opinions. So,
no, it sounds like a great project, actually. I'm glad that you guys are doing this. Last question, do you have a favorite question that has come out of the 40, or a couple of favorites?
No, I wouldn't say that I have a favorite. I mean, there's certain ways that things have themed together. There's of course, northern issues are a huge issue in Canada. So what happens to biological diversity as the northern parts of Canada warm is a very important question. There's important questions then related also to resource development, how that relates to resource development, transportation, infrastructure. I think myself that the northern issues are really crucial. But we do have, there's a range of issues that have been represented. We have some of the emerging issues, the things that seem to have risen to the top, the relationship between ecosystem viability, biodiversity, and human health seems to be a real issue that came through in the exercise. Invasive species, saying human health invasives, there's potential mechanisms for disease transfer. How do our vectors for disease transmission change? Being a social scientist myself, I guess my favorites would relate to how do cultural values, how do we make decisions about where we really want to go in Canada? What's our vision? And once we have a vision, or once we have large-scale goals, then how does our research fit into both conserving biological diversity and meeting our other goals that we need to really achieve as society?
Yeah, that last one is definitely my favorite as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Murray.
Thanks very much.